As the calendar gets closer to his 100th day in office, new polling suggests that President Trump's job approval rating is on the rise. A CBS News survey shows that 43% of Americans approve of the president's performance. That's up 3 points in the same poll taken some 2 weeks ago. 49% disapprove of his job in office. The bump in approval comes just days after the U.S. took military action in Syria, launching nearly 60 cruise missiles at an airfield believed to have stored some of the country's chemical weapons supply. Here to discuss the new poll is CBS News Elections Director Anthony Salvanto. Anthony is in our CBS News Washington bureau. So, Anthony, does a bump in President Trump's approval rating after the strike in Syria signify that the country is largely supportive of the military action abroad?
Well, hi, Elaine. And yes, the country is supportive of the airstrikes. 57% said that they approve of targeting Syrian military installations, the ones that launched those chemical weapons attacks. And the way you read this is that most Americans call those attacks immoral. So an action against something like that, an action that's in punishment for something like that, you see approval, and you also then see, as you mentioned, the president's job approval gets that slight increase. But when you then ask how far are you willing to see the U.S. go in Syria, that doesn't mean people have an appetite for a prolonged military involvement. In fact, Elaine, only 18% said that they were willing to see ground troops deployed. Many would keep it either just to airstrikes or to seek a diplomatic solution, Elaine.
Well, Anthony, what did the poll find about Americans' confidence in President Trump's ability to handle the Syria crisis moving forward?
Yeah, I think this is part and parcel with the unease that they feel about how far the U.S. might go in getting involved with Syria. So you see them say, more people say that they're uneasy about President Trump's approach to handling Syria than are supportive of the airstrike in particular. And then you also see numbers that suggest even Republicans, including Democrats and independents, all want the president to have to go to Congress to get authority and authorization for any further strikes. You couple that with, like I said, that reluctance to get any deeper involvement in Syria, and you see this overall picture that says Americans are still leery of what might come of protracted involvement, as they have been, frankly, throughout the Iraq War, as support for that started to taper off over the years, and anytime they're looking at the Middle East.
Well, Anthony, looking ahead, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson is set to meet later this week with his Russian counterpart. The poll asked people for their feelings about the president's overall approach to Russia. How did Americans respond?
Well, what Americans said was, in contrast to a few weeks ago when we polled on how Donald Trump was handling Russia, this time around, fewer people felt that he was being too friendly toward Russia. That number dipped down into the high 30s now, driven largely by independents who had thought that President Trump was being too friendly towards Russia, and now fewer of them say so. Of course, the connection here is that, as we've reported, the Russians aren't particularly thrilled with us striking that base, or at least that's what they've said. So, this could be read politically as a signal that President Trump is willing to do things that don't necessarily make the Russians happy, and that in turn is pushing down those poll numbers on that too friendly measure, Elaine.
All right, really interesting numbers. CBS News Elections Director Anthony Salvanto in Washington for us. Anthony, thank you.
Thanks.